Hello and welcome to The Garbage Reel. I'm your host, Jack Weber. This is a podcast where we discuss the truly awful movies that we just can't stop watching. Along with me, I have my good friend Sam Orsino.
Happy to be here, baby.
And today we're going to be discussing the 2003 movie Spy Kids 3, Game Over. We're going to go through our thoughts on the movie and then to the categories. Sam?
The categories we're going to be going through today are best quote, best performance, worst performance, most outlandish, bad scene, age the best, age the worst, who won the movie, and who lost the movie.
Okay, so this movie, it was written, directed, edited, scored, and shot by one guy, Robert Rodriguez.
He's saving budget. He's saving budget big time.
I mean, he directed the other Spy Kids movies. He did a few episodes of the Book of Boba Fett TV show. And
which wasn't bad. So
it wasn't.
If we're going off levels, he started from the bottom, which is this.
He did.
And he made it up there pretty well. So
I mean, this movie should be good. It does. Its cast has some heavy hitters in it. I mean,
for 2003, some of the heavy hitters, you got Selena Gomez as water park child or whatever it says in there. But still, I mean, you're starting having Selena young, having a lot of good actors. Maybe past their prime,
including George Clooney. We got Bill Paxton in there for a couple minutes. Sylvester Stallone plays the villain.
He plays like four different characters.
He does. He really goes for it in this movie.
He does.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times
it doesn't.
It doesn't. It just
doesn't work.
We have Elijah Wood popping up about 2/3 away through the movie, and
just for a little cameo
thing. At his height of his fame, he's right doing the Lord of the Rings. I think Return of the King was around this time.
He looks very young too.
He does.
He's a strapping boy when he was young. So
okay. But along with them, we have Selma Hayek, Danny Trejo, Antonio Banderas, Ricardo Montalban, Holland Taylor, and Glenn Powell, a young Glenn Powell, before he was famous at all.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he kills it in his about 30 seconds of screen time.
And for the people at home, he knows way too much movie stuff. So if you're like me and you don't know any of these actors or names, I'm just going to nod and follow along. So, but I do think, for the heavy hitters that we do have, it
could have been a lot better.
It could have been a lot better.
It should have been a lot better.
With the budget they had, you said 32?
So they have a budget of around $38 million. Their opening
38.
gross was 32.5, and then their worldwide gross overall $197 million.
That is crazy.
$197
for that
million
movie
in 2003.
They must think America's just
that was
a little
easily
shithole
one
there.
of the biggest movies of that year. Then it had to have been. Considering the quality of that movie, there's no way it should have made that much money.
There's no way, especially with, when you look back at those early 2000 times, though, when you see like Shark by Lava Girl, like all the other Spy Kids,
they really should stay in that time. We shouldn't be watching them again, but
they were so good.
They were.
Before I rewatched this movie, I was looking back and whenever I was a kid, these movies were good.
Like this was the pinnacle of filmmaking. Nothing beats these.
Pinnacle.
When I watch these now, I want to die. Run away. I
want to die.
It physically makes me ill. So I just want to get your thoughts on it. We're going to go into spoilers here. So if you somehow haven't seen the movie,
okay, spoilers are due.
This
was like over 20 years ago. Come on.
But we're going to spoilers.
A little less than 20 years, my bad.
So first thing off the bat, the kid actors in this, namely the main character, Juni Cortez, played by Daryl Sabara, we shouldn't. It's almost an all-time bad performance.
Even just from the start, it's just
he takes himself way too seriously, which I do admit that is probably the writing, what Rodriguez told him to do, but it's just to a point, and it is true for almost all of the kid actors in this entire film. They just have it's the common problem with child actors. They're not that great compared to the ones, like when you put them up against Sylvester Stallone, like obviously Sylvester Stallone's going to win this like battle of who's better. But I haven't seen anything worse.
I don't know. Cuz if we look sorry, I don't know his name. The guy from Top Gun Maverick,
Glenn Powell.
He did really good.
He did.
For a young actor being
Yes.
cocky and selfish like that, just to stand out there and like he just played it off like it was nothing. Like it was just, even in his new movie, he's looking so good. So
I mean, he knows how to play that role.
he does.
So just a little nitpick I had in about a third of the way through the movie. They introduced the grandfather, and he's in a wheelchair. He's bound to a wheelchair, so he can't walk. And the main character, Juni, says that his energy force has made him super strong in his upper body.
And it made him smarter, too.
That, too.
That's what he said.
And they just move past it. They just say it and never address it again.
That whole sequence of them on the moon in the first place, where it's like, I get it's a video game.
Yeah.
But if you're going to fake breathe underwater later in the scene, a little spoiler for later in the pod, let's make a fake bubble or something. We're already screwing up the CGI, so let's...
And if we're going to talk about the CGI, we got to address the whole movie.
No. Whenever since we're on this movie grandpa scene, whenever he gets those legs, I got to talk about
the whole suit becomes CG. That's what happens.
Yes. When he gets the quote, it literally says legs, but he gets a whole suit, so I don't understand where we're going with that. But you can literally see whenever he gets that suit, and then the whole butterfly scene with me. It's like, I get what they're trying to go with, that like the toy maker in this sense is the butterfly.
Well,
I picked that up.
That's kind of what the whole thing. That's his camera.
But first off, butterfly in space.
It's a video game.
It's the only thing in space, though. It's those two and a butterfly.
Yeah. I mean, well, while we're on the topic of the CG, it's atrocious. I'm just gonna say it now. Anytime we see a long shot of any of the characters standing on the floor, it looks like their feet are just hovering right above it. Never in the movie are they looking like they are standing on the ground.
There's so many scenes, especially one of those opening scenes when he gets into the video games with the frog hopping on the poles or whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that scene in general. Yes.
Those are just it's almost like when they were filming it, they just kind of told the actors what they thought it was going to look like, and just had them get reactions to it, like they were throwing green things at them.
But the scene with Arnold when he comes in, he's rocking Arnold, one of my favorite characters in this movie. He literally grabs the tongue of the thing, flies it around the frogs, flies it around, and it's like they could have just done it so much better. Yeah. He just stands there and he's like wailing it around.
But I mean, this movie is also just like a time capsule of that age of realistic animated movies, because there's no other movies like that. Because, well, if you look at this movie, the other Spy Kids movies, and even Shark Boy and Lava Girl, I think they're all the same production company as well. So that has
basically the same
something to do with
actors in all of them too. So
that too, and so it's just kind of like those movies are always going to look like that. No other company, and people saw like this doesn't work, and so no other company is going to be like, yeah, let's do this again.
The fact that they got away with so many of those movies in the first place,
it is something.
How many Spy Kids? Four Spy Kids movies.
Four Spy Kids movies.
There's Shark Boy, Lava Girl. There's so many movies that should not have seen the light of day. But my young self, being however old I was whenever I watched them, loved them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep. Couldn't stop me from watching it. You really couldn't.
10 years ago, I'm 20, so 10 years ago, not even.
Probably more. I'd give it more. I'd say around 7, 8.
Maybe. Okay. One of the greatest movies I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Shark Boy and Lava Girl. With all the CGI and everything. It's just so bad, but that'll be a little different pod.
So now we're going to move into the categories. So the first one is the best quote. So I have a couple best quotes that I have that are in the running. So the first one is from Juni Cortez when he says, "I never even got her email address." What a line. Nothing.
That right there shows you the times.
Yes, it does. It does. That's
the
2003.
Fact that kids at that age were using emails in the first place. I didn't even have a phone or an email or anything.
You were probably 2, so there's that.
Well, I mean, 2003, but like even whenever I was watching it, like 8 to 10 to, I don't know how old they were whenever they shot this film, but
yeah, the other
some of the jokes in there were just like.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
The other quote I have is one that comes up a few times in the movie. Around halfway through, it starts to pop up in reference to Juni Cortez once he's inside the game, is "You're the guy." So the guy in the film is a mythic character that's supposedly the best player in this entire game.
He's on the cover.
Yeah,
so if
he's
you see
the
the cover
character.
of Game Over, which is what the game is called, he is the outline of
The
that.
silhouette.
Which he also has 99 lives. I don't know how you get that many lives.
He's the guy.
He is the guy. So,
What were your best quotes?
so I actually never really wrote down any best quotes, but off the cuff, you know how I am. There were some scenes in there that I absolutely loved, and anytime the grandpa came in,
It was just a fun time.
he had so many fun. One of my best, I don't exactly remember the best quote, but when he came in on his little bike thing during the level
the race?
3,
I think it was
I
level
think it was
3.
level
Yeah.
3 when they're on the race, and he's like, you see Juni Cortez, he's riding on the ground because his cart literally just blew up, and the grandpa picks him up, and he's literally like, I forget exactly what the line is, but it's like, what are you doing on the ground? Or
He's like, "You're supposed to be winning this thing, Juni." Yeah, something like that.
and I was just like, whenever he talks, it's just him being a bobblehead is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can't look at him,
Yeah.
and he's an old man taking this role seriously.
Yeah. So he's in a full like suit up to his neck. It's like an
Completely
armor
CGI.
suit. I think they call it a power suit at one point.
Yes.
And it's completely CGI. His head does look like it's floating at times. There are some of the other kids, they have what look to be just like a motocross looking suit.
Yeah.
Like that's
straight
what it looks
out
like
of
for
dirt
most
bikes,
them.
man.
But the grandpa, Juni, and Carmen, the sister,
Yes.
they all have like these power suits, and they just don't look good. I mean, I'm being honest. Like they look awful. They look like floating heads at times.
Another thing that I absolutely loved was the small banter between Sylvester Stallone and his 3 other selves.
I'm about to get to that.
Oh
so
my gosh.
This will be so my best performance. I have a list because in this movie I found it was either you were amazing or I could not stand watching you. There's no in between with these. And so my best performances were Sylvester Stallone as the villain, Alexa Penavega as his sister, George Clooney as Sylvester Stallone, and the grandfather, Ricardo Montalban. So Stallone plays a villain that's trapped in a video game. That's like his whole thing. He's created this video game in order to break out into the real world, to take over the world. And Stallone plays the main villain amazingly.
Also known as the toy maker.
Yeah, he's the toy maker. And he is just going for it in every scene. He doesn't care about the money. He knows he's getting paid so much money to do this film, and he's absolutely sending it. The grandpa, whenever he comes online, he's just having a fun time. I can just tell. That's a seasoned actor. He's known for playing Khan in the original Star Trek movies. He knows what he's doing. He's just here along for the ride. Alexa Penavega, she plays the sister, comes in about 2/3 of the way through the movie. She's the only one I actually believe is a real person. By the way she interacts with the other kids, her brother, and just like her snippy remarks are just like, yeah, I could see somebody saying that.
She had a lot of realism in this movie too.
She did, yeah.
Which was kind of
considering being a
weird.
video game.
Yeah. But she was like, "Oh, you got to tell him this and that." Like whenever Carmen was with all the other kids that looked like they were
In
getting ready,
motocross suits.
yeah, going to ride dirt bikes or something.
Yeah.
They were basically like, "Oh, I'm going to take you to rich and fame, blah blah blah," cuz he was lying to them, trying to get them to make
Help
it
him.
to the 5th level. Whereas, what's her name again?
Carmen.
Carmen pulls up, says with her little funky arm that she has, which we need to talk about that arm at some point.
Yeah, we will.
The whole scenes, whenever, she killed it though, because she was like the only person that,
She was the only person that seemed like an actual person.
yes,
At least for being a video game and knowing that it's just considering all the other performances, she's the only one that seemed realistic. And then George Clooney as Stallone, is just perfect. He moves his mouth in the way Sylvester Stallone does. I was dying whenever we were watching that. So my worst performances, or sorry, what was your best performances? Sorry.
This kid trying to cut me off for you.
Sorry.
So my best performance had to be Sylvester Stallone. The way he interacted with himself. So he had a spiritual hippie kind of person, and they were all basically things he created in the game while he was trapped in the game. And he also had like a soldier one who looked like he was in like Civil War uniform. And then there was a smart one, which he had a bald cap on. Hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely hilarious. But they just, in the one scene where the smart one would like just stare at the camera the whole time, I thought it was so funny.
So, I mean, it's obvious how they did it. They just had him stand in one spot for each one.
Yeah.
And they must have done the smart one last or something, because he was, you could just
dead-
tell he was
dead
so
into the
done with
camera.
it, because he's just like, he looks at where they're supposed to be looking, and then his eyes go straight into the camera like that. And it's the most unnerving thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is. But I loved the dopey Sylvester Stallone. He took that character and ran with it.
So I'm going to ruin your day, because that was one of the worst performances I saw.
I loved it.
Because
he went after it.
Him as the toy maker was really good. It was like a psychotic kind of fed up villain. And but whenever he was his alter egos, I think, or his other personalities,
his alter egos won the day for me.
Sylvester Stallone should not be playing a smart guy or like a guru
But
type guy.
that's the point. That's the point. Like they're already they
I hope he
got
got paid for 4 other roles.
He didn't get paid for it. The fact that they put this movie out in itself allows him to do what he wants. So, especially he's top dog on campus. Anyway,
yeah.
So I think he must have had so much fun. Granted, saw some of the bloopers in the end credits series.
That must have been tough to act. So at the end of the movie, in the credits, they show a quick blooper reel for one of the scenes involving the grandfather and the toy maker.
Yes.
And Sylvester Stallone, as a toy maker, is standing at like a kind of panel, like at a helm of a ship. And that's the only thing that's like built. Like you can tell they built that has color to it. Everything else in the room, the walls, the floor, everything. Maybe not the wheelchair. I don't think it was the wheelchair. Everything else.
I thought he was in a suit at that point. Or was this like
he was in the wheelchair because he was in the real world. Everything else in that entire
Oh.
room was green, like a green screen. I'm not an actor, and obviously that's why I can't imagine this, but I couldn't imagine working and acting in something like that, where you just have to think, oh yeah, this'll look like something whenever it's done. I might not like it, but it'll look like something. I couldn't do that.
I mean, they did not have a lot to work with.
They didn't.
Especially with their low budget. Granted, low budget.
That's not low. That is not a low budget. I mean, considering
relative to now.
Well, you're thinking in terms of like a Marvel movie where they get $180 million. This would have been a type of a Marvel quote movie, because it's a big action movie. It's made for kids, and it's just kind of like off the wall and bonkers all the time.
Yeah.
So going off of that, for our next category, the most outlandish and crazy scene, it's about every action sequence for me. So my 3 are a giant Pacific Rim style robot fight, this huge motorcycle futuristic race that's just riddled with continuity errors, and the finale fight where they bring in every single other villain or the supporting character from the previous movies to help them fight Sylvester Stallone.
Which they don't even, half of them aren't even involved in.
No.
Which is just like,
so
they just want to get some bread.
The robot fight is essentially like 2 giant Voltron mech like robot things that they're standing on, and they just control and just have like a duel. Like if you've seen,
they don't have heads.
If you've seen the Thor Ragnarok when they have the giant fight in the arena, it's essentially that, but with giant robots. That's it. That's all you need to know. And in the race, so we said level 3, they're in these completely unrealistic motorcycles that have just like one huge wheel in the back, and then it's just floating for the rest of it. And they just have to apparently drive, and they can just hop to other cars.
They
and
took physics straight
just
out.
Gone.
Straight out.
Characters would get dropped off the track and then be back on their motorcycle or car or whatever, or they'd get thrown off of their motorcycle, and we'd see it blow up, and then 10 seconds later, we'd see them back on that one, driving.
There'd also be new cars added every 2 minutes.
It could be.
No. I'm saying, I don't know if that's true that they added new cars each little bit. I would not expect a game to add cars halfway through a race. Mm-hmm. But you would see new renditions of cars, like, who's the girl wearing the purple? What's her name?
I have no idea. It doesn't matter. There's, the one girl wearing the purple. She was driving like a unicycle, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
It was
and
just
gone. And then she was driving some like huge
tank.
4x truck. Mm-hmm. And it was like, how?
Well,
How'd
then,
you get that?
then we can talk about this, because Juni Cortez, like, cleared the field. He was gone. And he gets up to the final, and it's like it's a foot race to the last checkpoint or the finish line, and he barely scrapes by, and then he gets up off of like his hubcap. It looks like a shield that he's riding on that doesn't lose speed whenever it's just sliding on the ground, and then everybody is like right behind him. He cleared this field by we'll say 20 seconds, because we couldn't see them in the, like, when they'd show wide shots in front of him. We couldn't see anybody behind him except for the one girl that was in second place. And he gets up off of his shield, and everyone's right there behind him. It makes no sense.
And then he does the old Captain America stomp on it, catch it in the arm,
shield. Yep.
And then walks off like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. What a baller scene right there.
So the final fight, it's complicated and it's bad. It's the giant robots from the robot fight come to the real world, and they call in every single family member, every single villain turned hero, and every single supporting character from the previous movies. And when they come in, it's almost like they just told them to jump on like a completely green soundstage. And then they just kind of left.
I would assume that is what they did.
Because none of them look like they ever filmed a scene together. Except for Antonio Banderas and Daryl Sabara. None of them ever like shared the screen, I don't think. So it really is like they came in for a day and left and got a paycheck. Which, I mean, I can't blame them. Go for it. But in execution, it just made it so disjointed. And you almost lose track of the battle, like what's happening, because it's just they call in everybody, and there's these robots destroying. I think it's Austin, Texas.
Nah, it looks like
Austin, Texas. And
because they were talking about the president.
Yeah, he's in D.C.
Yeah, I swear this was in D.C.
There was a Texas flag on the building.
I swear there was.
Okay.
A little thing though that confused me. So in that last fight scene, you had to wear the glasses to see the robot, but it's interacting with things in real life.
So is it actually destroying anything?
So is it destroying anything, or are they
seeing it
still in
being
the game?
That's a good question.
Ooh.
That's a bit of an unanswerable question right there. But yeah, the final fight, it's all bad. It's disjointed. None of the actors seemed like they actually worked together unless they came in pairs to arrive on the scene. It just none of it works. So what were your scenes?
It's an outlandish scene. Okay, it's an outlandish scene. But
I know what you're talking about.
Gotta be my favorite scene of the entire movie. So they make it to the level 5 entrance. And enter name here. What is the name?
Demetra. That's her name.
The guy? No,
the guy. The guy. Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. So they basically say, "Oh, I'm the guy." Carmen, Judy. What's his name?
Juni.
The main character.
Yeah, Juni.
So Juni is basically throughout this movie the guy.
They think he's the guy of the game.
We all know he's not the guy. We all know. Based off of some other things that I absolutely love that I will bring up in a second. But they have their little conversation trying to get in this doorway, and then boom, Hobbit boy walks in. In glistening fashion, he says, "I'm the guy." He walks up does a little blast,
He's confident.
hits the door. He goes,
He's
"Whoop,
sure.
whoop,"
Yep.
hits the door. It opens, and he's like, watch this. Boom. Walking, strutting like it's nothing. Zapped out of nowhere. Falls down. All of his lives gone.
And for reference, everybody in the game that we've seen so far has 9 lives. 9
I thought
lives.
they went
No,
into
it's 9 lives. Everybody has 9 because he starts at 9 and drops. And you lose life after you take heavy damage. You literally die and stuff like that. And so Elijah Wood comes in, gets zapped, and falls on the ground. And one zap, and his life counter pops up. The guy has 99 lives, and they drop so fast.
Right down to 0. And I think it's also hilarious that it's got to be just a cameo. They couldn't afford to put him in any longer.
2003, it has to be a cameo. That was right at the height of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. But whenever he fell, and then all of Carmen and all of his friends were like, okay, you're back to being the guy.
Yeah.
What a scene that is. A little outlandish, especially with the whole, he's just coming in because they're trying to get clickbaits, not so much clickbaits.
He's
back
like
in
the
movie,
Tony
but
Stark of that time. Robert Downey Jr., sorry.
Yes. But
So now on to the next category, what aged the best? So this is like, at the time of the movie, what has grown in public affection, or what we use more that they used then, things like that.
oh, are you saying straight off the cuff, like, based on what we saw in the movie turns to real life, or are you talking about actors who,
like, what has turned out, like, when you watch this again, what has made it better? So mine are, I have the concept of video games just kind of like taking over more aspects of your everyday life, because they talk about at one point like kids aren't able to quit. That's a problem if you ask any parent. Ask any parent, and they'll say that's a problem.
So,
and it was this is also kind of a precursor to the Ready Player One movie from a couple years ago.
I will say I love that movie. I love it. Ready Player One, one of my favorite movies to watch. I know it's not going to make this because we're talking about bad movies, but apparently he does not like that movie so much.
It's not the best. And finally, mine is the concept of family to bring the villain into the good guys. I mean, it's in every Fast and Furious movie now. So at the end, they defeat the toy maker, and they kind of bring him into like the family huddle, essentially, because he says family with all the rest of them.
I'm not going to lie, I was kind of falling asleep at this point.
Yeah, it's not great. And I mean, if you watch any Fast and Furious movie past, I don't know, 5, that's the next movie, the villain of the previous movie is part of the team.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens every single time.
Yeah. So who are your age the best?
Age the best. I mean, the concept of the whole video games and, like, especially with Metaverse coming into play, talking about how,
virtual reality, kind of Second Life looking things. Yeah.
It's all freaky to me, especially talking about, granted, this was just, throwing glasses, but, the whole thing, it sparks a little differently now because these things are close to becoming a reality.
Closer.
Give or take a few years. Based on what Zuckerberg's talking about, Mr. Robot himself, talking about how he wants to basically reenact this movie in real life, hopefully with better CGI. But with all things considered, this movie as a whole, looking back, has done wonders to show how far we have come. So that, I think, is what aged the best. Because, even looking back, kind of wish I didn't watch this movie again because I had it at a high standard. And then after seeing all the CGI, it just kind of went straight down. So I will say the ideas definitely brought it up. It was something that is still relatable to this day, especially what he talked about, how the kids cannot pay attention to their families, can't do anything, very OCD-like or ADHD-like. So that's kind of like my best age. Throw in your worst age.
Okay, so my age is the worst. I've got 4.
With so many. He's got so many for each topic.
There's a lot of problems in this movie. So one of them is the CGI, which we've already discussed at length. It's all around awful. Another is child acting. Another thing we've gone over already.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually never good. I mean, it's gotten better. It has gotten better. We look at first couple seasons of Stranger Things or other projects with young kids,
Yes.
there are actually good child actors.
And those are TV shows.
Yeah,
which shows a lot
we've kind of
based
gotten
on
past
hour
that.
longs. So even for 30 days, like I will bring up, because I used to watch these a lot, like the DC universe, like The Flash, Supergirl, a lot of those things, like Arrow.
Yep.
You can tell their budget CGI,
Yeah.
but their budget CGI is
It's-
tenfold,
It's a lot better.
100-fold, 30 million-fold over this movie.
Mhm.
It is just outrageous. The physics, everything. Like, I get it's a video game, but still.
So the other two I have are 3D movies, which those are just they're non-existent.
They shouldn't-
anymore.
they shouldn't be
They
here.
shouldn't have. It was kind of a cash grab from money from movie
It was
theaters and
cool
production
then.
companies to like get people into the theaters, see this in 3D,
If I was
like watch
8,
it come to you.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I would have wanted to see that, but looking back
Now
on
I'm
it
like
now, it's just
gonna
kind
get
of
a
like
seizure staring at the thing, and
yeah,
it's like, ugh.
it's not a good choice ever. And then the final one is one of the production companies, the Miramax production company, infamously owned by Harvey Weinstein, who most of us know
Ooh.
is the worst human alive.
Ooh.
Your age the worst?
So my age the worst is, it's got to be Sylvester Stallone.
Really?
He does, the fact that he's still in movies and they're all the same category movies all the time. He's fighting some bad guy who, talked
Not-
wrong to his family.
Not
and-
really in the Creed movies. He's just kind of playing like an older, mellowed out Rocky.
Well, that's a little different. I think he plays that role, but whenever he tries to be a star, like, let Michael B. Jordan be the role. You'll keep Sylvester Stallone in as the, to grab that older audience to first watch the Rockies movies. But him and, like, I haven't seen a lot of new recent movies with
it hasn't
him.
been good.
And it's just,
Where he's the leading man, it hasn't been great.
yeah.
I think the last one was the Rambo sequel, which
They're
I
all
didn't
just
see
not
it.
good.
I
I
didn't
watch
see
a lot
it,
with my
but
dad because
that movie
he
was
loves
not
those kind of things, but it just goes downhill for me very quickly.
good. I understand.
But another thing is I don't know. There's a lot. The thing that upsets me a lot is you watch these child actors, and I think the aged worst thing for me is you watch them and they're in movies getting millions, super dope, super cool. Let them get that bread. But we all know what happens to those child actors, and a lot have grown up to be good people these days, marrying very rich and wealthy and attractive people.
Yes.
So that part, is good. But a lot of them, you can tell after their child acting, they just don't do any acting anymore. And some have real promise.
For those that don't know what he's talking about, Daryl Sabara, who played the main character, Juni Cortez, he's married to Meghan Trainor, and
Fire.
Alexa
Fire.
Penavega is
She's
now
fire.
married to Carlos Pena, probably Penavega, I'm assuming, from Big Time Rush. So now into our last
A lot of
couple
fire
categories.
couples right there. Just throwing that out there. A
Yeah.
lot of fire couples.
Now into our last couple categories. Who won the movie? So this is at the end of the movie, who's looking the best? Who do you think out of all of this came out the cleanest, so to speak? So for mine, I have Robert Rodriguez, the director, writer, editor, score, cinematographer, everything. I mean, he's taken all those roles. He's getting the money. That's what he's doing.
He's getting that bread.
Money. He is, yeah.
He
I
did
can't blame him.
everything. And
How
you
about
stole
yours?
mine there. You
Yeah?
stole mine because I
Okay.
wanted to give him the shout out of taking every single role. Not the smartest option, but it
yeah,
was
it probably
definitely a
wouldn't
cheap
have
option.
been great. I mean, we also have to think how much. This is an hour and 22 minutes, so it's not like he's writing 300 pages of a script, but that is a lot to do
Still
on
delegate.
one film set.
There's a lot of great people who create movies at this time.
There is.
No reason not to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why the CGI is so bad, because he probably did it himself. Like, delegate a little bit. You made well over profit.
Mm-hmm.
100 million over profit.
Definitely a success. Sadly,
Well, not sadly in 2003.
that's true.
Sadly now.
Yeah.
Rewatching.
So on to who lost the movie. So this is just the opposite of who won the movie. Who comes out the worst? Who comes out looking like, they should not be in another movie again? So for me, I have the 3D movies, the concept of a 3D movie, because this 3D movies were not a great solution to any type of problem they could have seen, whether that was to get people into theaters, to get more theaters showing that one movie, having 3D options, having non-3D, and then having IMAX. It's just way too many different screens. But I also think 3D movies, especially when you're watching them at home, you don't have 3D glasses for your TV, and nobody has a 3D TV. That's not made anymore. And so it's just it's not used anymore. It's non-essential. And my other lost movie, I have a tie for this, is a word they say about 80 times in this movie, the word unwinnable.
He's getting triggered a lot over this.
It's a word, but it's skating the line right there. That shouldn't be a word. I don't know about you, Sam, but I hate that.
The fact for me that this game, which you basically enter your whole life force into that game, is only 5 levels. You can't make a game that's 5 levels ever. So I'm very confused, especially the whole unwinnable level at number 5. And if you win, the game shuts down. So as a creator, who makes that?
So your who lost the movie is just like the shortness of the game?
A lot of people lost this movie. Yeah, a lot of people.
A lot of people.
One of the things, I'll throw 2 out there right now. I'm gonna keep riffing off of this. A lot of things, could fly with the younger audience. But looking back, it definitely did. But looking back, like having no physics in there, there's a scene, one of my favorite scenes, because it's so bad. They're basically walking to this volcano, and these little tiny things pop up that are going to kill them. They jump off of a ledge straight towards the lava. Somehow they get surfboards that are aerodynamic.
Lava. But this lava doesn't interact like regular lava. One, it's flowing like a river, so that just doesn't work, scientifically at least. And at one point, they drop, like 200, 300 feet?
And they don't go in.
Yeah.
They land on top.
And they just land and start
breaking my knees
again.
Straight away there. Everything's compressed down into nothing.
You're pancaking on that.
I am dead. I'm going from 99 to 0 at that point.
Yeah.
So the whole fact that, they're surfing through here, everything, so many things in this movie were just, does not obey the laws of physics or gravity or anything. And that was, a little pet peeve for mine. Just because, puts... it's a video game, but put a little bit of realism in there.
Yeah.
And then another thing is the Spy Kids franchise. They made a 4th movie after this somehow.
Granted, it was, I want to say, 10 years after this. So it wasn't like they were planning on making another one right after this one. It was more of just kind of like that time when they were it was that time whenever they were remaking old movies to just kind of get younger audiences, to get newer audiences, to get more money out of them. They made
it was just bad.
4th one, I think. Yeah.
It was just after that. After the first movie, I don't know how you make 3, 4 others, but
yeah,
it's just atrocious.
It is. So that'll wrap it up for us here at the Garbage Reel. I'd like to thank Sam Orsino for hopping on this pod with me. Did a great job. I'd like to thank our producer, Jake Drew, for setting up all of these cameras, these mics, and everything, getting it going for us and helping us along with this. It was a lot of help.
It was.
It really was.
Drew did a lot. He's off the pot a little bit right now, but, we've been fortunate enough to get to know him a little bit and have him actually know the knit and grit of how to do all this stuff. So big shout out to him.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Garbage Reel. You can find it on any streaming platform you want: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, too, on your way out. Thank you.